दादा दादी के टाइम में यहाँ से वहाँ नीचे तक पूरा हरा रहता है, बोलता है, पन्नी डाल के।
आजकल नहीं होता?
आजकल नहीं होते, पन्नी भी बिल्कुल नहीं, इधर बैठता भी नहीं। उस टाइम पर गाय शाय बकरी बीड़ू सब रखता है, बोलता है। अभी पता नहीं, मौसम भी चेंज हो गया है ना।
हमारे गांव में बहुत सारे जो पानी का प्रॉब्लम होता है, तो क्योंकि हमारे गांव में मतलब रेनफॉल तो बिल्कुल कम होता है।
Our glaciers going away means that our lifeline is going away. They say roughly more than 1 billion people are affected by what happens in the ecosystem of the Himalayas.
I'm pretty sure slowly and steadily, if we keep neglecting all this like this, it would come onto our doorsteps as well. And then we will be ill-prepared. We didn't have any resilience. We have no adaptations to these kinds of problems. And honestly speaking, a Ladakhi may survive. A person who hasn't faced these kind of problem would not.
Ladakh is one of the highest cold deserts on Earth, situated in a Himalayan region known as the roof of the world. Its villages, a series of parallel valleys, depend on water stored as glaciers on top of the mountains. For centuries, the Ladakhis lived off these lands as farmers and protected it. But these glaciers are disappearing at an alarming rate due to rising temperatures caused by climate change. And the Ladakhis are suffering from this water crisis. Sonam Wangchuk is a Ladakhi engineer and educator who has dedicated his life to solving the climate change crisis in his motherland.
In Ladakh, we are on the fringes of the Tibetan Plateau. And the Tibetan Plateau is supposed to be the biggest reservoir of water after the North and the South Pole in its glaciers. So it's often called the third pole even. So what happens to the glaciers in these mountains is very important, not only for people who live here, but people downstream in the plains of India and on the other side in China. People would tell you that it used to snow much more in winters, and it's much warmer now in summers. And insects like mosquitoes, we don't even have a word for them, are now here to stay. When glaciers are gone, there'll be no water in the streams and no farming, and therefore lots of climate refugees. It has already started in at least 2 villages that I know. People have abandoned the village because there's not enough water now.
For hundreds of years, Kulum, a village in Ladakh, had enough water. But 10 years ago, everything changed.
पहले तो दादा दादी के लोग में सर्दी में बारिश बहुत गिरता है, बोलता है। फिर सीजन में मार्च अप्रैल में धूप भी ज्यादा आता है, फिर पानी आता है, बोलता है। फिर यहाँ टाइम से बारिश नहीं गिरता है, गर्मी भी चेंज हो गया। गर्मी आएगा तो मई जून में इतना गर्मी आता है, फिर गर्मी ज्यादा आएगा तो पानी थोड़ा सा है ऊपर, फिर वो पूरा वो गर्मी से वजह से नीचे जाता है, वो भी नहीं आता है।
Kulum's main source of water has dried up, forcing many families like Chandols to abandon their homes. A small spring remains, but it's barely enough. Many of those who stayed had to give up farming and eke out a living in a small town called Upshi, 5 kilometers away. Urgain is one of them. She now works any daily wage job she can find.
कभी कभी मैं याद कर लेते क्योंकि टेंशन नहीं होता था दिल में जैसे कहीं भी रहो पहाड़ में रहो या कहीं खेती में रहना टेंशन नहीं होता.
Farming was all Urgain knew. So she has been struggling to find other jobs.
आजकल भी मैं बोल रहा हूँ मैं मम्मी को भी मैं बोलते थे हर रोज मैं इतना पढ़ा लिखा थोड़ा बहुत किया तो मैं थोड़ा बहुत कुछ कर सकता है कुछ पढ़ा लिखा किया नहीं तो क्या करेंगे कुछ ना कुछ बात बोलने भी नहीं आता था ये मुश्किल है.
Very good afternoon. Let's begin with our top story. Now, 115 people have died in flash floods that have devastated Leh in the Ladakh region of Jammu and Kashmir. Authorities say at least 400 of them are still missing. Among them are at least 31 jawans. Now, hundreds of injured people are in hospital.
The villagers have noticed that the weather is not just getting hotter and drier, it's also getting more erratic. In Ladakh, flash floods and droughts have become a common occurrence.
Yes, they have had two floods, flash floods basically, in the last decade, because of which their on-surface spring sources they had diminished and they had reduced to what they were with respect to what they were before, and that has impacted the water flow in the village, which is essentially spring water.
Nishant Tikku is a glaciologist working with Sonam to devise methods to mitigate effects of climate change in Ladakh.
What are we trying to do here is to rehabilitate the village of Kulum. And how we are doing it, if you see this thing, this is an ice stupa. This is a type of water storage in winters, and then this water could be essentially used when the requirement is. There's a spring source up probably about 1.92 kilometers upstream, and we have tapped the source. We have tried to create a reservoir up there, and through the reservoir we have piped the water down. And when we pipe the water down, naturally there's a head difference and the water would try to maintain its height, and we sprinkle it through the top of ice stupa. In cold Ladakhi winters, it freezes, the droplet starts to freeze, and this kind of structure is made, which resembles Ladakhi traditional structure of stupas or chortans or moulds or something like that. Yeah.
The ice stupa is a kind of artificial glacier that provides meltwater after winter. Man-made glaciers have existed in Ladakh since the 10th century, but the ice stupa has been the most effective so far, making it one of Ladakh's most important inventions of the 21st century. It has put its inventor Sonam Wangchuk and Ladakh on the world map.
Many people ask me, have you patented it? I say no. In fact, I try and encourage and teach how to make it, because it's not about keeping it close to myself. It should spread in all parts of Ladakh, any places. That's the best way to propagate it. So therefore, I don't care about patents and things. It's copy left, right and center, whichever way you can.
Since its inception in 2014, ice stupas have been replicated by many villages in Ladakh, as well as in other countries like Pakistan and Switzerland.
But it is not easy or cheap to make these, so we are doing two things. One, to develop the techniques so that they are easier, simpler, for fewer people to make. At the same time, subsidize the making of it by introducing tourism in it.
How do you feel when you come to these villages? I mean, your ideas have taken a life of its own.
Yeah, it's going out of control. Out of anything I thought. It's going bigger and much larger than anything we were able to do. So it's nice. It's very nice. This is how they started in mid-November. Mid-November they started in this very small size and slowly.
It's February now, and this ice stupa is 30 meters high. Sonan's team supplied the materials, but this ice stupa was built from scratch by volunteers from the community.
तो यहाँ पे हमारे यहाँ पे पूरा स्प्रिंग तो है नहीं, चश्मा नहीं है, पूरा बर्फ के निर्भर रखते हैं, आइस के। फिर हमने भी इस साल ट्राई किए हैं। ये एक तरीके से ये एग्रीकल्चर जो गाँव वाले के लिए एक बैंक है पानी का, क्योंकि यहाँ जमा करने का एक तरीका हमें शिक्षा मिला अंशु साहब से।
You want to come in?
Yes.
Nice cave. Hello. So this is the center of the dome, center of the cathedral, the ice cathedral. In spring, in April, May, there'll be conflict over every drop. And right now, nobody cares about water. It's just flowing down into Indus and into the Arabian Sea. So at this time, when water is not wanted by anybody, you freeze it. You freeze it, and like he was saying, it's like a water bank that stays till April or May when you don't have water, and then it melts. Many young people are migrating out from the villages. So our idea is also to make village life interesting. So I wanted to catch up in many, many villages, and each village takes pride in their own village life in the winter.
While many youths are moving out, some have chosen to return, like Azim, a young engineer who came back to Ladakh after studying in New Delhi.
Namaste, Shubh-prabhat, Sat Sri Akal, Jule. मैं आपका आजिम from Ladakh. तो आज का ताज़ा खबर, आज हमारे लद्दाख में बहुत हद से ज़्यादा स्नो हो गई। मैं आपसे हम सब से ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि हमारे लद्दाख में आइए और हमारे ट्रेडिशन को जानिए। नमस्कार।
Inspired by her love for nature, Azim decided to be a farmer.
This is your field. What will you plant here?
Barley, wheat, vegetable, potato, pea, cauliflower, cabbage. No, मैं मतलब बचपन से मतलब नेचर को मैं बहुत पसंद करती हूँ, मैं एनिमल्स और प्लांट्स को। तो जब भी मैं जैसे कि फॉर एग्जांपल प्लांट्स है ना जो ग्रीन होता है, जो मई जून के टाइम, उस टाइम मतलब ड्राई प्लांट्स पानी नहीं मिलता है तो मुझे बहुत दुखी होता है। तो इफ आई पुट वाटर देन मेरे को मतलब अंदर से खुशी होता है। दे आर आल्सो लाइक ह्यूमन बीइंग्स। Today in our area we grow so many vegetables like potato, like so many things. क्योंकि हमारे एरिया जो है जो 6 month बिल्कुल कट ऑफ होता है दूसरी की जगह से, तो हमारे इधर विंटर में कुछ नहीं मिलता है, तो इसलिए.
The roads leading to Ladakh often gets blocked due to heavy snowfall, isolating the villagers from the rest of the world. So farming is a necessity and water a lifeline for Asin's village. But they too are facing shortages.
मेरे बचपन के ज़माने में बहुत ज़्यादा पानी होता है दैट टाइम. अभी पानी बिल्कुल वो हो गया, लेस हो गया, तो इसीलिए हमारे विंटर टाइम्स में कुछ मतलब टेक्निक यूज़ करके स्टोर करना चाहिए, जैसे कि आर्टिफिशियल ग्लेशियर, ताकि फील्ड को हो सकते.
An ice stupa has been built in her village, but Asin says it's limited.
इधर हमारे नीचे वाले पार्ट में तो नहीं मिला, जो जहाँ पर बनाया था उस एरिया में तो मिला.
आपका फार्म कहाँ पर है? ऊपर में ही है कि
ऊपर पे भी है?
तो वहाँ तक
पानी नहीं आता है,
पानी नहीं
क्योंकि
आता.
हमारे गांव बहुत बिग है. एक आइस स्तूपा जैसे कि इसको ही पानी दे सकते हैं.
अच्छा.
ज़्यादा नहीं दे सकते ना एक आइस स्तूपा.
At this stage, what I can say is that this has lot of promise. Yeah? It's not a solution yet. A lot of work has to go in. But if this was to be taken as a technique to refine by big institutions and specialized scientists, it will very soon catch up in its simplicities. It's like any technology which starts as a somewhat crude, somewhat difficult, but then can be refined to give a solution to lots of problems, especially around climate change.
For now, Asin is doing her part to fight climate change by dedicating valuable farmland to plant trees.
Is this your tree place? Yeah. Another one. So you don't want to plant vegetables here?
No, because there's lots of trees. You can't plant vegetables here.
The water crisis in Ladakh is not just affecting the livelihood of many Ladakhis, it's changing their way of life and threatening their cultural heritage.
हाई जी, बहुत पुराना घर है ना जी, 400 से 500 लगभग ऐसे साल का पुराना घर है जी. ऐसे हमारा सबसे पुराना घर यही है. पहले ये तो हम लोग यहाँ रहता था, अभी ये छोड़ के हमारा दूसरा घर बना है. ये तो बहुत पुराना हो गया, फिर बारिश भी पूरा घर ऐसे.
Urgen was born in this house. It has seen weddings, funerals, and many festivities. Siblings, cousins, nephews, grandparents all lived under one roof for generations. But as the water went away, so did many family members, until Urgen and her mother was left. 2 years ago, however, they gave up. It was just too difficult to maintain the house on their own.
हम लोग यहाँ ही उसी टाइम तो हम सब करता था ना सर. हम लोग यहाँ खाना भी बना लेते, इसमें आग जलाते, फिर बच्चे लोग यहाँ ऐसे बैठ लेते. उसी टाइम तो हम लोग का पढ़ा लिखा तो होता नहीं है, लेकिन हम लोग यहाँ सुबह शाम इधर ही बैठ लेते. दिन में तो सारे बकरी के पीछे चला जाते, बकरी गाय उसके पीछे.
They were always a hard-working community, right? They still are a very hard-working community. That is why you would know that even after leaving their places, they don't want to leave this place. They will still come here, still try to grow whatever they can with whatever water they have right now. But this whatever water they have right now, under the current conditions, will finish. If not in a decade, if not 2 decades, probably it will take 5 decades, but it will go.
Only 4 families are left in Urgain's village. The ice stupa they constructed last year didn't gather and store enough water for all of them. But she is determined to stay, hopeful that this year their ice stupa would deliver more water and bring back life as she knew it.
हम लोग रोज ऐसे जब से ये मंदिर बना के होता है ना उसी टाइम से हम लोग दिया जला के आती है बस ये तो रोज जलाते हैं ये जैसे कि हम लोग सुबह शाम हर रोज जलाते हैं एक दिन भी नहीं छोड़ते ये से हम लोग ये गांव में नहीं छोड़ना चाहते क्योंकि हम लोग अपना यहाँ पैदा हुए हैं तो बिल्कुल नहीं छोड़ेंगे
आपको क्या लगता है कितने साल आप यहाँ दिया जला सकेंगे?
अभी तो हम लोग कभी खत्म ना हो तब तक हम लोग दिया जल सकता है हम जला सकते जैसे कि ये जिंदगी पूरा इसके आगे भी ये दिया तो नहीं छोड़ सकते हैं हम हर रोज ये दिया जलाते हैं ना बचपन से ही
Scientists predict that the glaciers which Urgain and a billion other people in Asia depend on will disappear in another 50 years if nothing is done to mitigate climate change. While Urgain, Azim and the others do everything they can to protect nature and keep the flame of hope alive, Sonam and his team continue their work through science and by raising awareness, hoping that their ice stupas would carry the lessons from Ladakh to the world and that one day the world would listen.